Oh, no. Okay. I'll keep my mind.
In case there was any doubts before, I think we're already pretty lively, but we are now. It looks like we are now in session. So this is the Albany Arts Committee meeting for Monday, May 9th, 2022. And this is the call to order. We will begin with roll call, followed by the land acknowledgement. So Keenan, if you would please take us through roll call.
Of course. Chair Gatch?
Here.
Member Bowers?
Here.
Member Bergman?
Here.
Member Goodman?
Here.
Member Samatsky?
Here.
And Member Raxall? And she is absent today.
Okay. Then we have quorum, so we are now in session. And Member Samansky, can I have you read the land acknowledgement?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Here it is. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of LaShawn. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Great, thank you. We now move to agenda item number 2, which is the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I second, sorry.
Okay, great. And Keenan, would you mind taking a vote?
Yeah. Chair Gatch?
Yes.
Member Bowers?
Yes.
Member Bergman?
Yes.
Member Goodman?
Yes.
Member Samatsky?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, then the minutes have been approved, which brings us to agenda item number 3. This is public comment, and this is for anyone desiring to address the committee on an item that is not on the agenda. And each speaker would have up to 3 minutes. Keenan, do we have any public comment at this time?
We do not have any public comments at this time.
Okay. That brings us to agenda item number 4. This is announcements from staff or committee members. And let's start with committee members. Are there any announcements on items, again, not on the agenda? That looks like a no to me. Staff, any announcements?
Yeah, I have a few announcements actually. So to go back on one of the motions at our previous meetings, it was about the activity guide and the arts page on that. We are going to be moving forward with putting that in there. Like we have been putting some information on that. I'm going to share my screen just to show you the kind of the deadline that we do. So we have 3 seasons for our activity guides. We have a winter spring, which is from January through April. We have a summer, which is May through August, which we're in now. And then we also have a fall, which is September through December. We do typically need information for these booklets at certain times to make sure we can get it proofread and go through the process of being printed and processed throughout the city. So for example, our winter spring, we do need information by the end of September. Summer, we do need closer to the end of January. And then fall, we typically have, we would like information by the end of May. It takes a little bit of time, but we definitely want to make sure we go through the proper process to get this information nice and correct through our activity guides. All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
For example, the guide that is for September, or with the deadline in September, when does it actually come out? How much time in advance of the date on the issue? Is it like?
Yeah. So for example, our let's go with our summer guide. So we usually want information on that in January, and that will come out in the end of the last season. So it'd come out in April, so it'd give a month before the new season comes out, and then would have all of that materials for that season. So it typically comes out before the actual season starts.
So it comes out about a month before the season starts then? The reason I was asking was that I see you've got a end of May deadline coming up, and we do have this haiku program coming up. And I'm wondering, since the deadline for submission is probably going to be somewhere in the month of September, but the guide should be available maybe from August or so. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So would it make sense to put a notice then in that fall page? Or in that September issue?
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
Okay. All right.
And then, do you put those, I'm sorry, you have a question. Do you put those pages together yourself, or do we put something together and submit it to you?
It's kind of a collaboration portion, so we can definitely talk, and I can help either give suggestions, or we can kind of go over materials that is good kind of for that proactive advertisements.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And then I do have one more announcement as well. The City Council just had their first in-person meeting this month, and that is going to be moving forward with commissions and committees next. So I'll definitely keep everybody in the notice before we go back live in person. But in the meantime, we'll still continue to do these via Zoom.
You're not thinking of doing a hybrid, are you?
There's still discussions on that, but I'll definitely keep everybody in the notice.
I vote for never going back in person myself, but I'll do what we do.
All right. Do we have?
You have your pajama bottoms on. Okay.
Do we have any other announcements from staff?
No other announcements at this time.
Okay. Then that will take us into agenda item number 5, which is presentations. Do we have any presentations for this evening?
No presentations at this time.
Okay. Then that takes us to agenda item number 6, which is discussion of possible action on matters related to the following items. And I'll just read through the items and then we'll start at the beginning. 6.1 is the Community Center Foyer Gallery, where committee members will vote on submissions for the remainder of the shows for the 2022 calendar year. 6.2 is the Creative Justice Art Project. Committee members will discuss the funding of panelists for the Albany Creative Justice Art Project. 6.3 are subcommittee reports, if available. And that includes the Sculpture Loan Program Subcommittee, the Fall into Haiku Subcommittee, the Arts and Economic Development Subcommittee, Creative Justice Art Project, Poet Laureate Program, and Art and Public Places Ordinance Subcommittee. So starting with 6.1, this is the discussion for the Community Center Foyer Gallery.
That's me.
All right.
All right, hopefully you all got your submissions and you've looked over them. What we're doing here is selecting 2 shows to fill out the rest of 2022. The present show will come down on the 13th of June, and the new show will go up the 26th of June. That will last until the 26th of September. The new show will go up, the second show will go up the 30th of September and go through December 30th. And then we will start the 2023 gallery. There are usually 4 shows. So consequently, the call for artists won't be, I guess, it's too late to put it into the catalog. And September will be too late because we have to vote on 2023 in September. So I'll find another way to get the information out there. But tonight we're only doing 2. I've talked with all of the artists, and because we were a little late, and they are still interested and they understand what's going on. So it's now time to discuss the people that we're considering.
Could you just clarify, please, when the show ends in June, the next show goes up, but that artist has not been selected yet. Is that right?
That's right. That's why.
And that's from tonight?
Yes.
One of the artists we select
one
tonight?
of the people from tonight
Right.
will go up next.
Okay.
And in that period of time, I've got to visit the artist and get them the security devices, and they have to get prepared for the exhibition. So it's kind of.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, I mean.
Kind of in a hurry.
Okay.
Okay, I'll leave it open to anyone who wants to start a comment.
I was muted. So just to clarify, we are selecting one of the 3 artists whose submissions that we saw to be
selecting 2.
Oh, 2.
2. We have 2 shows until the end of 2022. One starts in June, one starts in September. And the June one is the one that's going to be a little tighter. So we're selecting 2 for this year. And then we will begin all over again in January for 2023.
And the tight schedule needn't affect our appraisal. That is to say.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Like I said, I talked to all of them.
They can all do it.
Understand, they will do it, and they are looking forward to seeing who gets chosen.
Okay.
I can read the names, or
Yeah, let's I think Keenan, let me ask you really quickly. Are we in the context of the selection, are we looking at the work individually and then simply voting on it? Or is there a need to, in terms of transparency, to share screens to show the work to the public in this?
That's a good question.
Context?
Typically, when we've done this, it's always been in person, where we have put it on the kind of a desk for all the committee members to see, and then they make the decision off of that. So typically, we don't showcase it.
Okay.
Is there a reason not to? I mean, this is public, right? So, I mean, Chair Gotch, I guess maybe this is your call. I wouldn't have a problem with public seeing what we're discussing.
Sure, if we're going to discuss it, I'm waiting to see if there are points you guys like to make. I can go through it one by one, and I believe Keenan can put their artwork up if you would like to do it that way. I really don't have any precedent for this,
Yeah,
because it was always decided before, in person.
Mm-hmm.
So we can kind of make it up.
So what I could do, if you're interested, I can put them on the screens, but we can basically have them as numbers without names associated.
All right, good.
So I'll showcase the first set, and then I'll slowly go through them to look them over, and then we'll go to the next submission.
Okay, so
Are
we're
we-
just
are we
calling
not
by
to-
numbers.
Are we not to refer to the artist by name then?
Right, this is going to be called number 1.
Okay.
Well, number 1 is the all of the artist collection.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
She wants to, the number of works would be 11. The title, the proposed title is Joyful Journeys.
Mhm.
Could you give some idea of the size? As I recall, these are a little on the large side. Aren't they like 12 by 18 or something like that?
She didn't tell me.
Well, they range. They're listed in the application. I
Yeah,
think the smallest is 12 by 16.
yeah,
The largest is 18 by 24.
yeah. They're kind
They're
of large.
not framed at this point. I do know that.
Yeah.
So they're on a cradled canvas. So
Yeah, I think she said she was going to provide frames for them, right?
she said she would, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through the selection one more time.
Yeah, I've pondered this a little bit, and I think what I appreciate about this artist series is, one, I think it evokes, obviously there's landscape, there's some Bay Area representation in there. To me, it has a kind of works progress 1930s mural style, which I think is a very accessible medium for the general public. I think it sort of is a very work that sort of draws you in pretty quickly and keeps you there for a while. So I personally really appreciate how this artist approached sort of different series. I think altogether, it makes a nice story, especially for the general public to kind of walk through and see how she's rendering these different scenes. Some of them are obviously not Bay Area, but I thought it was a particularly nice approach.
Okay, Keenan, I think we can move to submission 2.
We are
And-
now looking at the submission 2.
This one, the title is Wings. She proposes 25 to 30 works.
And these are like 10 by 12 or something?
Yeah, they're not huge,
Yeah.
but
They're
that's,
large.
I can talk to her when I visit her studio.
That didn't work.
There.
Just turn our heads. Huh.
There's a famous story once of Harvard receiving a Georgia O'Keeffe, it was a Mark Rothko print, and they famously put it upside down for about 30 years
Yeah.
until someone remarked it was upside down.
Yeah.
Again, from my personal opinion, I think there's accessibility here in the work. I think there's not a lot of variation. However, in terms of just the color tonality of it, provides for a pleasant, I would say, gallery experience in its totality once it's all put up.
I went to the website and there is more variety there. I don't know if that's what she would like to do, but there is more variety there.
Okay, and if we can move to the third submission.
Sure.
And these are also fairly small.
Yes, he proposes 12 to 14.
That might not be enough to fill the space.
Well, it should be. I mean, we've had, the current one we have is about 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And the proposed title are Dreamscapes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, if you feel it's enough, that's fine.
So since we are selecting two each, maybe each committee member can say which two they would vote for, and we can see if there's any conflict or any consensus already.
Thank you. That's a good idea. I'll just refresh your memory. Number one are the landscapes called Joyful Journeys. Number two are the abstracts called Wings. Number three are the watercolors called Dreamscapes.
Great.
Okay, I'm ready to take the tally.
Why don't we start? I'm just going to go down my line as it comes up on Zoom. So Member Bergman, do you have two favorites?
I think 1 and 2.
Okay, 1 and 2. Member Bowers, do you have two favorites?
Wings and the Joyful Journeys, 1 and 2.
Okay. And Member Szymanski, do you have two favorites?
I'm gonna go 2 and 3.
2 and 3. And Member Goodman, do you have two favorites?
1 and 3.
1 and 3. So
And Chairman, you need to vote.
and then I need to vote. I think for the Foyer Gallery, I would probably go with 1 and 2.
Okay. So that looks pretty clear. I have 1 and 2 ahead.
Okay. And is there, does anybody want to make a strong argument for number 3?
I would. I found number 2 pleasing, but very, very similar. Each one kind of gave me the same vibe. There was nothing the least bit unprofessional about it. That wasn't the issue. But I just thought 6 walls or 6 panels of the same stuff was just going to get very tedious, and the works were not going to stand out from each other very much and allow a lot of individual definition and appreciation. Whereas number 3, you could say, well, they're the same, but they're really not. I think they're very different. There's a lot more, I felt like there was a lot more depth. The viewer, me, I felt I could crawl deeper into those paintings and get more of a variant sense of mood out of them. Whereas the number 2, I don't mean superficial in a bad sense. I simply mean that it seemed very surface decorative without a lot of me being drawn into it. As well, I'll have to talk about number 1. I think Member Bowers was quite right. It's a crowd pleaser and people will like it. So that makes sense to me. I just felt like as an artistic experience, number 3 just offered more opportunity and just went a little deeper.
Member Bergman?
Well, personally, that's exactly what Member Goodman just said. Is personally, I found number 3 a lot more. I could engage with it. I could imagine sitting with that, somewhere in my house and sort of conversing with it. So, yeah, but I don't know if I think, 1 and 2 might, but I could defend 3, but I don't know how it would work in the foyer in that exhibit. But I don't know about, well, yeah. 2 is kind of the same sort of device in different combinations. But I think what Member Bowers said about it, it might be, more of a crowd pleaser. I don't know.
Well, I can understand. I think what you're saying is number 3 might seem a little dark compared to the other ones, but it definitely had mood to it as opposed to more kind of a graphic design or more of a design thing. Is there anyone who would like to change their vote? No? Then I think we have these artists, and I will encourage the 3rd person to apply again for next year.
Keenan, do we need to take a vote to determine that?
Correct, yeah. So we do need a motion to go pass. If someone would like to make a motion to pass 2 out of the 3, and then we can vote on that as well.
Yeah, I will make the motion that we pass 2 of the 3 submissions to go forward to exhibition in the Foyer Gallery.
Do we have a second?
Sorry, what's the motion?
That we are going to take the 2 we voted on to submit for the gallery. I mean, to exhibit in the gallery.
I don't necessarily have to approve of the vote to approve of the motion, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, then Keenan, would you take the vote?
I'm not sure if we got a second on that one, actually.
Oh, I second the motion. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, I'll take a vote. Chair Gatch,
Yes.
Member Bowers,
Yes.
Member Bergman,
Yes.
Member Goodman,
Yes.
Member Samatsky.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so we've approved 2 artists. Before we move on to another agenda item, I would like to make a motion that if the 3rd artist does decide to resubmit, that we waive the submission fee for a subsequent submission, that they've already paid their submission fee.
Well, I thank you for that. What I would like to do is submit to all of you a revision for the artist agreement and the liability agreement with no fees. I think the deposit for damage might be okay, but I just don't understand this idea of fees anyway, but definitely to do that.
I thought the fee was partly for the postcards because those cost like 40,
yes.
40 or so bucks.
I shouldn't have interrupted Chairman Gosh, because it's true, if he resubmits, he shouldn't have to pay it again. But I'm going to redo those and bring that up at a meeting ahead.
Okay.
When I try to get organized for the shows next year. I'm just completing the shows for this year.
Okay. Can I let my initial motion stand and see if there's a second?
I second.
Okay. And Keenan, would you take a vote, please?
Chair Gatch,
Yes.
Member Bowers,
Yes.
Member Bergman,
Yes.
Member Goodman, Member Samatsky.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Then the motion passes. And Member Samatsky, if you could let that third artist know.
I certainly will.
Thank you. Okay. Then we are into agenda item 6.2. Oh, I should hold up a second. Keenan, did we have any public comment for the last agenda item?
Yes, we do have one public comment.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody. I know the last agenda item's closed, but I just want to say some positive things. It's tough for me to grade art. Everybody on this board has seen so many pieces of artwork, and I do agree. We like colors. Number 3 was kind of black and white, kind of dark, but maybe that represents something. Maybe that represents the mood of everybody for the past year because of COVID. Maybe the public, might like different ones, right? It's tough for us to know what the public's gonna like. It's tough for us to think what 20,000 people are gonna like. I know number 1 obviously was really good, detailed landscapes. The bridge, Golden Gate, was beautiful. It's kind of represents the Bay Area. Number 2 is great. It's really colorful, but number 3, some people might be colorblind and all they know is black and white. Art comes in all different shapes and sizes. And I'm wondering if there's still a chance for number 3. Like maybe somewhere else in Albany? I don't know, somewhere else in Albany? It's just hard for someone to submit something and get turned away. It's like, to them, it's like their art doesn't matter. Like it wasn't good enough for Albany. I mean, what is that person gonna feel like when they get told, oh, you didn't make the cut? It's like, oh, well, you can't make the varsity team. You're only JV. That's why I think art class in school should just be pass or fail. They're not graded. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, 1 and 2 are great, but 3, it could mean a lot of different things. It represent a lot of different things. So I was just giving a strong shout out for number 3. Maybe there's another chance. Oh, and I was gonna ask, if this is the creative, is this the creative justice art or this is just a gallery?
Just the gallery.
Gallery.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'll save my comment for the creative justice. Well, if this is just a gallery, then I'm going to refrain from asking, how old these people could be or whatever. That's maybe for more justice stuff. But the last thing I want to say is I would really like to see senior citizens apply for this. Keenan, maybe down at the senior center, put up a notice. And then, I hope all of these are alcohol free. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment, Keenan?
No other public comment at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Then we will move on to the next agenda item. This is the Creative Justice Art Project. And this is specific to the funding of the panel. So just to kind of fill everybody in on what's been going on, we're at a bit of a stumbling block at the moment because we were told currently that because of the amount of the Creative Justice Art Project, which exceeds $10,000, we are required through the master plan to convene an external panel. However, we've been told that to pay for the panelists, that money would have to come out of the artist's budget for the project. And this is a really tricky situation. And I think I just want to be really clear at the start. I think everyone involved is just trying to understand the mechanics of the situation. I don't think there's anyone that's trying to throw anybody under the bus here or complicate matters unnecessarily. But I do think we need to kind of clear the path so that we can make some progress on this project. To date, in previous conversations with Liam Kelly, who was our staff liaison, I had been told that that funding was available for panelists and that any administrative costs for the project would not come out of the project budget. Unfortunately, that was in a combination of emails and phone calls. What I do have from Liam is a copy of the section from the Albany Public Art Master Plan, which does talk about the funding of panelists and seems to indicate that that money is available through the APP fund and does not need to come additionally out of the artist project budget, nor does it need to be a separate item, which we would go back to City Council for approval. There is some confusion about that right now. And hopefully Liam can also clarify the staff side of things. But I also want to emphasize that it makes us look really bad, both as a committee and as a city, to advertise a project in which we are asking artists to submit a budget for a proposal with a set amount, and then potentially telling them that we're going to extract an amount from that budget so that we can administer the project on our end and make that selection. In my personal and professional opinion, it's unconscionable. It's in really bad faith. And I don't think it's a good look for us. And I think we need to do what we can to make sure that it doesn't happen in the first place and that it doesn't happen again. So what I would like to do to start off here is I'm going to refer to the Albany Public Art Master Plan. And it will take me just a second to find the section. It looks like it's section J3 on the selection panel. And maybe, Keenan, can I go ahead and share my screen here?
Yeah, of course.
Let's see if I can. So this is the document that I had received from Liam when we started this process over a year ago. And in the Albany Public Art Master Plan, it says the AAC, the Albany Arts Committee, will appoint a selection panel to assist with the public art review process for any project in the PAPP with an estimated cost of $10,000 or more, or for any project cited on one of the 12 top priority sites identified in the Public Art Master Plan. Further along here, it says, depending on the number of projects meeting these criteria in a given cycle, the AAC may choose to appoint more than one selection panel or may hire an expert facilitator and may direct funds from the APP fund to cover such costs. In addition, the AAC may appoint a selection panel for any project at any point in the public art review process if the ACC deems this necessary for a fair and informed process. In the email correspondence that I've had with Keenan around this issue so far, the messaging seems to be contrary to this, but I think it's likely to just be a kind of bit of confusion with a lot of other moving parts in the process. So I'm hoping that this just clarifies it right off the bat, and we can move forward with saying that anyone who helps us in this process of selecting a proposal should be compensated for their time and their expertise, and that we do not need to go back to the city council for special permission for any additional funding. And that as an arts committee with a dedicated arts budget for these projects that have already been approved by the city council, that we should be able to move forward with invitations for a selection panel and compensate those people appropriately. I think hopefully I've said enough. I'm going to stop my share for right now. We can pull that up again if we need to look at it. But I think to start things off, Keenan, can I turn it over to you for any clarifications from your end? If I missed something or misrepresented something, or if there's any sort of smoothing out that needs to happen.
Yeah, so I think one of the kind of more complicated portions would be is if there are non-voting members on the panel as well as voting members on the panel. That kind of gets more into some sticky situations where non-members would not be paid as the voting members would. So that's kind of more of the harder part to maneuver around.
There is a section, we can look at that too. There is a section specifically about non-voting members. I think the only tricky thing from my end in trying to understand the non-voting member portion is up until this point, it was stated that a member of the Arts Committee could be on the panel as well. And there was a question about whether a member of the Arts Committee, for example, would be a voting member or would be a non-voting member. So I think we have a couple of options to go there, which is one, we could say that our members of the Arts Committee can help facilitate the panel, but would not be on the panel and therefore would not vote. Or we can say members of the Arts Committee would also be on the panel and would vote. Those seem like the two possibilities there. The other question that came up is if, for example, we reached out to other committees within Albany that are volunteer committees and invited members of those committees to also weigh in their area of expertise. If we are giving them a vote, but also not compensating them, does that get us into a tricky situation? So I think in previous conversations, the way that I understood it was that other members of other committees, so for example, the Economic Development Committee or the Social and Economic Justice Committee, if they were to weigh in on the proposals, that they would be non-voting members and also non-compensated because they are in a voluntary role with the city already. And that would be true of Arts Committee members as well, that we would not be compensated as panelists. But it sounds like we have the option to either abide by the writing around non-voting members as currently written, or we could also potentially decide to do away with non-voting members altogether.
And I do just want to touch up a little bit on that as well. If the funds would be coming from, like you mentioned, from the
APP fund.
Yeah, the APP fund, that would still need to go to council for approval. So if it's coming from the APP or the general fund, it would still need that council approval.
If the Albany Public Art Master Plan already has council approval, why do we have to go back to the council to approve something that's already in writing in the Albany Public Art Master Plan?
The approval would be the amount. So it's stated that it's available for that reason, but the council would still need to approve the amount compensated per the panelist itself.
Member Bowers, you have your hand up.
Just to clarify, is it an expectation that external panelists have to be compensated? Is this a voluntary thing that we could ask them to waive? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to understand the nature of these selection committees, or is that a statutory thing that they need to be compensated? And is that whole scenario then covered by other guidelines or policies on how much you pay a committee member?
I don't believe that there's any requirement that people be compensated for their labor. But I think it's the ethical thing to do and the professional thing to do to compensate someone that's going to be spending time for something that is not really of a professional advantage to them, that we would want to compensate them. There's certainly no shortage of instances, particularly within the arts, where people are expected to do things for free, and they do those things. But again, I would say that that's not particularly ethical. And hopefully, particularly around a project that is set up around social justice, my personal preference is that the ethical choice is to pay people for their labor. The other part of your question, in terms of the amount that I put forward to Keenan was based on conversations that I had with members from the Berkeley Arts Commission as well as from the San Francisco Arts Commission, and based on the number of submissions that we got, and also the anticipated amount of time to review each submission, to score each submission, which they have to do. It can't just be, for example, the conversation that we just had is not the protocol for convening a panel of this nature. Each person has to score each submission with comments, and then they have to reconvene as a whole to discuss each of those. So based on the amount of time, the number of submissions, and what Berkeley and San Francisco are doing, that was the number that I proposed to Keenan. That is $500 per panelist. It's based on 12 submissions. The amount of time just to read through and review the submissions is estimated at around 20 minutes, which I think is probably about right, give or take. So they're looking at 5+ hours plus additional labor beyond just looking at the submissions.
So your hourly rate is somewhere like between $80 and $100 an hour?
Correct.
Could I ask another question, Chair?
Sure.
Were you told that the Art and Public Places Fund money was not available, or were you just told that there might be a problem in using it for all the reasons that we've discussed previously?
Well, we just received the proposals, and we just hit the number of proposals that allowed us to convene a panel. So Member Szymanski and I were trying to move forward and convene a panel. And in order to do that, we needed to have a clear statement about how much we could offer. And we were told at that point that any amount that we offer would need to come out of the approved project amount, because it wasn't written into the RFP. But again, I think this would be strange to say that we would have to write it into the RFP. And if that is a requirement, especially since the RFP faces outward, it faces the individuals that are proposing, and the administration of the proposals is on our end. It faces inward.
Yeah.
So
It's either a city expense or it's like cost of doing business. I mean,
that's absolutely right.
if I think you've stated the case clearly. To make the artist pay for it is ridiculous.
Yeah, I would agree. That's disingenuous.
Absolutely.
Approach should not be endorsed.
So you're looking at a total, how many panelists? 5?
Well, initially we proposed 3,
Or 3?
and then I think there were 2 non-voting members that were also proposed, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so
Plus
15.
plus someone from the arts committee.
Yeah.
So that would be 3, I think, at least. And
Right,
I
it
think
has
it
to
says
be-
there that there can't be more non-voting members than voting or non-voting.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again here, just so we can kind of look at the language here. So it says here, selection panels will always consist of an odd number of voting members. So we could have additional members that are non-voting members, but in terms of voting members, it has to be an odd number. And they are drawn from the following categories: artists or arts professionals, interested members of the community. In the case of community projects, 1 or more representatives of the neighborhood in which the artwork will be located. If the selection panel is deliberating on more than 1 community project, the neighborhood representative on the panel for 1 project will be replaced with the appropriate representative for another as the panel's subject to deliberation changes. There will be a minimum of 3 voting members on a selection panel. Artists and arts professionals will always outnumber non-professionals. And then it also says non-voting members may also be appointed to the selection panel from the following categories. So this was, again, I think just a miscommunication from somewhere, but where there were questions raised about the idea of having non-voting members. But again, I mean, I'm just working off of what's already in front of us here. So this isn't like my Aaron's made up world of panel selection here. So non-voting members may also be appointed from the following categories: the design architect, if known, the project manager, a designee from the city department, other members of the project design team, a member of the Albany Arts Committee. So, so it seems pretty clearly that a member of the Albany Arts Committee could be on the panel, but would be a non-voting member.
Right.
So again, I'm not sure, and this was also in my conversations with Liam. This is what we were working off of, and I think it raises potentially another concern, which is that as the committee, we are reliant on the information that we receive from staff to try and execute this to the best of our potential. And I understand like mistakes happen and there's confusion and people are overworked. And I also understand that the Albany Arts Committee is like one small aspect of all of the tremendous work that the staff does, and that, you know, things are going to slip through in different areas. But again, I'm just working off of the master plan that the city council has already approved. And I don't understand why we're getting that kind of pushback at this stage.
Yes, what I imagined when we talked about this was 3 professionals that we pay to be on the panel. And these are not likely to be residents of Albany, but professional people. And then maybe a representative of the Arts Committee could be a facilitator, and then volunteers from 2 other committees in Albany, maybe the Social Justice and maybe the Economic Committee or the Chamber of Commerce, they could come over and be non-voting members also. So there would be a team of 6, 3 paid, 3 unpaid with a facilitator. That's what I imagined. And when I read that, I thought exactly the same as you, like we don't have to get it approved because it says we can do it. But
the only thing that I would add on to that is that I do think we have tremendous talent in Albany. And one of the paid positions that I would hope would go to someone who is an arts professional. I do not know them personally, but I know them by reputation. I also know that they live in Albany, and they come well recommended from other arts professionals who are working in the region at the city level. So we do have that talent, and hopefully we can draw from that talent.
yes, I'm sorry. I guess I just thought of it that to divide it into the professionals and to the non-voting members, just
Right.
equal.
Right.
Chair Gotch, how much of would you go over or summarize the funding for this project again, and what percent of it is coming from the Art and Public Places Fund?
Right now, the total budget that was authorized is $30,000.
Okay.
And that total amount is coming from the APP fund.
I see. Well, I mean, administration is a part of any arts project, so it doesn't seem any question that it should come from the same fund. And budgets, I mean, they're known to change as time goes by. So I guess I don't see what the objection would be to simply adding whatever money we need from the Art and Public Places Fund. That's what it's for.
Well, what Keenan said is we have to have the amount approved.
Yeah, but I mean that sounds uncontroversial to me. If it's a real expense and
No, I think we all agree on that.
yeah.
It's just that
Yeah, in order for you to get your panel, you have to make sure you can pay them. Yeah.
yes.
Right.
And we want to go forward with this project, and if we have to wait for more approvals, you know how that goes. You know, I think that we should be able to go ahead with a reasonable amount as, you know, an administrative cost of this project.
I agree.
So it's up to the city to decide whether you can do that or whether you have to actually get official approval.
I would argue that the public art master plan is already that approval. I think part of the reason that we're having this discussion here is not to put anybody on the hot seat, but I do want it to be on public record, both where we're at, like the stage that we're at in this project, and also that this is the obstacle that we're faced with. My hope is that those that are making the decision that are currently saying that that's not the case, my hope is that they will revisit the public art master plan and acknowledge that if this committee has any sort of teeth to it whatsoever, as already, in the sense that we've already been endowed by the city council through a presentation and through a vote to move forward with this project. My hope is that they will revisit that public art master plan and let us go forward without having to wait another month to get on the city council agenda to move it back in front of them.
Which person are you looking to make that determination?
This would bring us to the next part of this equation. So far, I have only been talking with Keenan on this, but Keenan, can you, maybe you can fill us in on that?
On the portion for the money for the panelist itself?
Yep.
So under my understanding, within the master plan, like you mentioned, it does mention they can be compensated, but it doesn't mention the amount as well. So that component itself has to be approved by council either way. But yes, I do agree with Chair Gatch. It is written in that it has been approved by the council, but the amount portion for each panelist for voting has not been approved at this time.
So could that go on the consent calendar of the next council meeting with a staff report and a recommendation to approve, and then, I mean, maybe it's just pass there.
I can't guarantee it would be on the next council itself. It would be put onto their radar going forward, but I would say within at least a month or a month and a half. But I can definitely say it would be on their radar going forward, and that does have to be going through the proper channels for approval.
And in that process, we present our methodology and rationale, et cetera, or was it simply an amount is brought forward that they approve or don't?
It would be simply the amount itself.
But I mean, in order to stave off further discussion and to increase the chance of approval, it'd be good for, say, for the Arts Committee to say we want this to happen, and also for us to give some data as to why this amount is appropriate and what it's for, et cetera. So don't get caught in a lot of questions and back and forth and have it postponed again.
I'm confused about one other thing. You know, we initially had to go to city council to have the budget approved for the amount approved for the project because it exceeded $10,000. And any item on our work plan that exceeds $10,000, we have to go for city council approval, correct? But this is an item that is on our work plan, which has also been approved, which is less than $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's seen as somehow separate from the proposal for the Albany Creative Justice Art Project, but is consistent with an item that's on our work plan, then don't we also already have approval because the work plan was also approved? It seems like we have approval twice already, and now we're going to go in front of city council for approval for a third time.
But somebody has to agree with that interpretation, though. I mean, somebody with, say, the authority to release the funds has to say, yes, your thinking is correct. So I don't know.
But I really want the discussion on public record. This is really, I think, for me, what this is about, because it potentially, we know, like, we have a lot of really high turnover on the Albany Arts Committee. And one of the reasons we have high turnover on the Albany Arts Committee is because people say that things take too long and nothing ever gets done. And now we're in a situation where things are not getting done despite what appears to be already approval. And I want to make sure that moving forward that there are no surprises. If it's this project where we get all of the surprises and we get it all out, then great, fine. But I want to make sure that whatever the next project is, and whatever the project is after that, and whatever the project is after that, that we're not chasing our tails, or whoever is on the Arts Committee at that point isn't chasing their tails trying to get something done in the city.
Well, I think your instincts are correct. Just dealing with this one particular issue. If I mean, we can't act unilaterally to release the money. We kind of have to do it, I guess, the way that Keenan is suggesting, and so. And then to make provisions for this and subsequent projects that might have a panel, to always have that as kind of boilerplate language that, you know, any additional money for administration will be, you know, considered a part of the project, or however that's to be worded. But right now we have this one issue of trying to get it through the next possible council meeting, and what can we do to make sure that happens. Statement of support or a motion from the Arts Committee, and then for you guys to come, you know, draft up a notice for the city staff to present to the council so that they can have it, and, you know, maybe it'll just pass the first time around without question.
I mean, Mr. Chair, the 30,000 approved, is there a lot of detailed breakdown in that 30,000, or is it just a number? It's
largely a number in terms of how that that money is administered, but in the RFP, which was built directly with staff, alongside staff, and in which the language was parsed very carefully, and in which we also worked really hard alongside the city attorney, and to also make sure that the language was appropriate. During that entire process, there were conversations specifically that we would need a panel, and that panel could be compensated. Mm-hmm. So if that language is absent from the RFP, it is not because there weren't enough eyes on the RFP. And it's, I think one of the other concerns, I think one of the things that we really need to clarify moving forward is if that money does have to come out of that amount, that needs to be really clearly stated, and it needs to be really clearly communicated, not only to the committee, but it needs to be clearly communicated to the public and to anyone that we're asking to propose, that what we're asking them to propose is not a $30,000 project, but a $27,000 project.
Right. Yeah, I think there is a point to be made here in terms of precedent and being on record of, we're trying to get this very clear. It's messy, maybe a little bit, but obviously we want the spirit and intent of that project, as the public saw, to be fully vested with the awards and not administrative overhead eking into the 30. It's just it just sounds like an overhead cost that was crept in there that no one saw. That doesn't seem very right to me. So I think we're gonna have to make sure the council is fully aware and what we intend to do. I think your rationale and logic on the costing of the panelists makes sense to me. You did the research. We need to come up with a final number of panelists, the right equation of non-voting, voting, but I think we should have the council really have clarity on this, so we have strong basis on our decisions.
I agree.
So how are we moving forward with this? We're going to council?
How can you not?
I know, yes.
I mean, we could potentially not. I mean, it is possible. I mean, like, Keenan, can you clue us in here in terms of who do we need to work with? Is this explicitly a council issue, or is this an interpretation of the master plan issue? Like, who do we need to work with here?
Like I mentioned, it would definitely have to go through the council for that final approval.
Okay. And if we are going through council for the final approval, then could we make a motion to ask staff in this instance? I think what we would want is actually several different drafts. I think we would want specific approval in this case for the panel, but I think we would also want staff to produce draft changes to the master plan as well that indicates compensation for the panel or for any panel moving forward. And I think we would also want a revision potentially to the work plan to indicate that the amounts in the work plan currently and moving forward are not going to be siphoned for administrative costs outside of those projects, so that we're not asking artists to do murals and then telling them, for example, that that they're going to be charged for the traffic cones that are going to go out on the street.
Absolutely.
Some other aspect. So I guess we make a couple of motions. My first motion is I move that we ask staff to put this on the consent calendar for the next city council meeting to fund 3 expert panelists at $500 each to move the Albany Creative Justice Project along.
Second.
Keenan, can you take a vote, please?
Yeah, of course. Chair Gash,
Yes.
Member Bowers,
Yes.
Member Bergman,
Yes.
Member Goodman,
Yes.
and Member Smotsky.
Yes.
And Chair Gosh, will you provide the council with your rationale for, you know, where that $500 comes from? Why,
Yes.
why $500, you know, per?
Yes. And then I would like to make a second motion that staff draft language proposing changes to the master plan to indicate that compensation for panelists does not need, how would I say this? That authorizes the Albany Arts Committee to vote on sufficient compensation for panelists moving forward, to clarify the language around panel selection.
Just a quick question, Chair, in terms of tactics on this second motion, do you see this as a separate motion for that, or a separate issue for them to look at? And I don't know how administratively long things take to get there, but you know, for us to get success on that battlefront, are we willing to concede we want the approval first for the dollar amount to go forward?
I was going to say the same thing.
We'll continue to sort of tack on this other issue to make sure that there's stability in the future so we don't have to redo this all over again. So, I mean, tactically, do all of them have to happen at once, or can we get one and then sort of get number 2 secondly?
Oh yeah, I don't think the second one has to go into the consent calendar.
Okay.
But I would like to ask staff to move forward with a revision of the language to clarify that.
Well, sorry, are you asking for the council to approve that change? Or
I think whatever language that we have to produce would then have to go in front of the council for that change.
Well, I guess I would recommend that you withdraw that motion and first off, wait to see how the first motion goes through and what questions are raised, so that whatever new language is developed can answer those objections more strategically. Also, as I recall, there are other changes that we are planning to make to the master plan in terms of the definition of public art. And I would suggest that we look at the entire master plan and do all of our changes at one time in a kind of coherent way so that change in one place can be reflected in, throughout the document. In a more deliberate and thoughtful approach, I think would be better.
I really appreciate the comments from the committee, and I rescind the motion. I think those are all fantastic comments, and I'll put my temper off to the side for now, and hopefully we can just get this project moving forward.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, that's the goal, right? Yeah, and
I think everyone wants that.
yeah,
Like I really don't think there's enemies here. I think everyone wants that. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, well, I've been on this committee for many years, and that's how it goes.
All right. Well, we do have, we may have public comment. So moving forward, I will leave it there for the moment. And Keenan, do we have public comment?
Yes, we have one public comment at this time.
Hi, good evening. How to do this by the way. This is Jeremiah. I speak for myself. I think you had a lot of really good suggestions. I think it's a great idea to get other commissions involved. Economic, social economic justice. You can request maybe the chair that able to be a panelist or something, or maybe send an email to Anne or SEJC. That way it could possibly be put on the agenda before next meeting. The SEJC didn't have a meeting this month because quorum was not reached. I guess some people didn't show up. So yeah, it's a great idea. I think the chair of the social justice.
Jeremiah, I think you were already kind of cutting out, and it looks like we lost you on there. Are you still there?
Thank you. That happens every once in a while. Sorry about that. Yes, it's a great idea. And I was thinking the money issue, I guess the $3,000, I think it would be a good idea to, when you bring that to city council, there's still some money left over in the discretionary fund. And so I would suggest asking the city council if they could possibly, donate or something, that $3,000 or, $500, whatever it is per panelist from the discretionary fund. That way the money can come from somewhere, because there still is some reserved. So I don't know. Those are just my suggestions, and looking forward to everything else.
Thank you. Keenan, do we have any other public comment?
No other public comment at this time.
Okay. So that brings us back to final discussion. Are there any other member comments on this particular agenda item? Okay. Then we will move forward to item 6.3. These are subcommittee reports. The first is the Sculpture Loan Program Subcommittee. Member Bowers, if you would take it away.
Great. Yeah, I'll try to be brief. But today, May 9th, we actually installed the first piece by the artist Jeff Downen, Bard Spiral. It's on Masonic in Washington. I took a photo. I walked over there earlier today. I know Keenan was there maybe during the installation, but that's gone live. Happy to share photos if any of you haven't been over there yet or not. So looks great. The second sculpture is going up on May 27th in the early afternoon. This is like on Rotary Hill. Goes for all of us a little bit later. And then we're going to organize, or I should say staff is organizing a grand opening for both of these pieces with the artists later in June, which we can promote better with the general public and have some great community relations over those two pieces.
Is there, well, congratulations for one thing. I had a full head of hair when this is there a plan to send out a like a RFP for the next batch, or for any empty spaces that are still remain to be filled?
I'm not aware of that plan myself, Keenan. I don't know if there were, or Chair, if there were reserved for the future yet this calendar year, but I'd have to check.
I know initially there were 3 sites that were indicated for the sculpture loan program.
Yes.
One of those was no longer available because we took too long. So there may still be the possibility of pursuing a third sculpture at a third site.
I would hope too that the city would draw attention to it in its social media and announcements and whatnot.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think this is I think sculptures have a way of definitely drawing attention because they look permanent, they're interesting, and they change people's eyes when they walk by it. So it's good to draw attention to that. So we'll look into that. That's all from my end.
Great.
Right.
I think since this is all one agenda item, Keenan, do we do public comment at the end?
At the end of the agenda item.
So the next committee report is Fall into Haiku.
Right. Well, basically same as last time. Hadn't started up with submissions yet.
All right. Then you also have the next one here, which is the economic, what is it? Arts and
Economic Development Committee. So I actually attended the meeting last week and sat through the whole thing and learned a lot about parklets on Solano. But the discussion went so long that they truncated the meeting and never got a chance to talk about art. I'll try again next month.
Okay, great, thank you.
They asked me about parklets.
Creative Justice Art Project. I think you heard enough from me tonight. Let's move to Poet Laureate Program.
Also, as far as it, right. So that member Bergman and I are managing that, and as far as I know, we don't have any further submissions. It's supposed to end at the end of May, and at that point, we will also convene a panel. I don't have any hopes of paying someone for the panel, but we'll assemble people to go over the submission or submissions and then make a determination as to how to proceed from there. I mean, we'll either have a poet laureate or we won't.
And then the Art in Public Places Ordinance Subcommittee. We didn't have I don't think we have any updates here. Member Szymanski, do you have anything to?
No, but I think we talked about it a little because of what Peter said before about looking at the whole document. So I think that's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that brings us all the way through our subcommittee reports. So we'll open it up to first questions from the committee about anything that got reported. And then we go to public comment, if there's public comment.
There's no public comment at this time.
Okay, and then back for any final comments from the committee.
Well, I just want to thank you all for all the good work. Yay, sculptures.
Hey, sculptures. Oh.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the pedestal is quite robust. I'm sure city engineers wanted it to survive earthquake, but it looks nice. It looks nice.
We'll get a bigger sculpture next time.
Mhm.
Remember, Barris, where did you say it was? Masonic and
Washington,
Masonic and Washington, right? Okay.
right at, right next to the bar.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of agenda item 6.3. So we are now on to agenda item number 7, which is future agenda items. And of course, committee members can also get in touch with myself or Keenan.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll have something on the Economic Development Committee and the Poet Laureate.
Okay. Anyone else? And it is an agenda item. So is there any public comment?
Yes, we do have one public comment.
Thank you. I was going to suggest possibly a senior art project or a youth art project that would be public and that would be free. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment?
No other public comment at this time.
Okay, and are there any final comments on future agenda items from the committee? Okay. In that case, our next meeting is Monday, June 13th. And other than that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.